Thanks very much. I'm very pleased to be back at Africa Down Under, and I always find it a great opportunity to engage and listen to the issues that are raised by Australian companies investing in Africa, and also I regularly host a forum for the visiting African delegations so that I can hear directly from them. And at that event, we also have the ambassadors, the Australian ambassadors to Africa, join us for that event. Of course, given the nature of this year's conference, we're not able to host that, but we look forward to a future day being able to do that. And I begin by acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands of the Noongar people, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I also want to acknowledge the contributions made by other ministers and other representatives of government during this conference. And in particular, I want to acknowledge Patrick Gorman, the federal member for Perth, who's joined the conference this morning. Now, I've been asked to put this hat on, and I'm going to do so. And so it's got my name on the back, and EMB Connect are just out in the foyer are doing these hats, and I assume that Bill asked me to put this on as penance for having stolen one of his staff, having poached Mark Andrews into my personal office. I assume that Bill's getting me to do this to atone for that sin. But it's always worth acknowledging the work that PayDirt do in organising this event. This is a critical event for Western Australia and for Australia and our relationship with Africa. And so Western Australian government has for many years had a deep partnership with governments in Africa through a memorandum of understanding which was signed with COMESA by Colin Barnett when he was Premier, when he attended Mining Indaba in 2015. It might have been 2014. In 2018, I was able to attend Mining Indaba and re-sign an extension of that memorandum of agreement. And that sets out a basis for cooperation between the government of Western Australia and a range of government members of COMESA. And so we work together on training in exploration, policy development and technology. And so officers of the Department of Mines, Industry Regulation and Safety have run workshops in Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Madagascar, Nigeria, Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia and Zimbabwe. So we've had a strong link with governments in Africa to make sure that we can assist them in developing their resource industry for the benefit of their people. And of course, there are 95 ASX listed companies with 178 projects in 29 countries in Africa. And of those, 66 of those 95 companies are here in Western Australia, with 132 projects across the continent of Africa. Many of those projects are still in the exploration and development stage, so it shows there's much opportunity for growth in our economic ties. And of course, we're also favoured by investment from Africa into Australia, and particularly into Western Australia, and that includes goldfields with interests in Agnew, Granny Smith, St Ives and the Gruyere JV, and Anglo Gold Ashanti's interests in Tropicana. We know that Africa has a huge endowment of minerals, and many of that is still yet to be exploited. Of course, much of the continent is yet to be explored in a systematic way, and therefore we don't even know what the opportunities are. And so we know that Western Australian businesses and the government of Western Australia are keen to partner with African nations to identify resources, to allow the exploitation of those resources for the benefit of the international investors, but more importantly, for the benefit of the countries and the people of Africa. Africa is also an important market for the mining, engineering, technology and service companies based here in Perth. when there's hundreds of Western Australian companies operating in Africa in the met sector. Western Australia's harsh environment means that we have to be at the cutting edge of technological development in the mining industry. And so METS companies operating here in Western Australia are learning how to operate in very harsh and difficult environments and to apply technology to solve problems. And the good news is that skill and learning is available for the benefit of the African mining industry. Global METS Investments report says that there are 77 of the top 100 global mining equipment, technology and service companies with operations here in Western Australia, and indeed of those top 100 companies, 22 are actually headquartered here in Western Australia. There are over 1,700 METS companies based here in Western Australia, or operating here in Western Australia, and we look forward to having their experience available to the African mining industry. And we always make sure that people understand that Western Australia is good at mining, not because it's about quarrying, it's about applying technology to solve problems. Nobody can come to a conference like this and not comment about the strange circumstances that we find ourselves in with the global pandemic. Western Australia has carefully managed our health situation to make sure that industry can continue strongly here in Western Australia. And the fact that our mining industry has been able to operate largely without impact during this global pandemic, I think is a tribute to the workforce, the leadership of the mining industry, and our ability to work closely together with government. And I'm very pleased by the high level of engagement that we've had over the last 18 months. We know things are difficult. We know things are challenging in the way that we're managing the disease. However, the fact that we're able to have this large in-person conference shows the success of the way the government has managed the COVID virus here in Western Australia. And this has given us the opportunity to keep our industry strong over the last 18 months, and we're very pleased to see the great success here in Western Australia over that period of time, with record production in a number of commodities. And that, of course, has allowed us to support our partners in Asia in particular as they use those resources for their own economic benefit as well. And it's often not considered what might have happened had we had disruption in our resource sector here in Western Australia. Not only would there have been a huge impact on Australia's economy, but on our partner economies in Asia as well. So we continue to support the exploration sector here in Western Australia, and I was very pleased to announce at the Diggers and Dealers Conference in Kalgoorlie that we'd increased the exploration incentive scheme by 25% from $10 million a year to $12.5 million a year. Half of that money is available for pre-competitive data acquisition by the Department of Mines, Industry Regulation and Safety, and the other half is available for co-funded drilling programs. So there's now an even stronger opportunity for people to be involved in mining exploration activity here in Western Australia with the strong support of the Western Australian Government. So the Western Australian mining industry has a proud history of success, and the Western Australian Government wants to continue to partner with the sector to continue to build that success. We believe that we're a good partner for development in Africa, and that we have the skills that can unlock many opportunities in Africa. And here in Western Australia, in our junior sector, you've got the entrepreneurial spirit to take advantage of even the most difficult project, wherever it is in the globe. So I'm very pleased to be along here today. I look forward to hearing about the success of the conference, and I very much look forward to being at the Africa Down Under Cup tomorrow afternoon to see its continued success. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Bill. That was a really great opening session or opening remarks there. That's fantastic. We've actually got an opportunity to ask the Minister a few questions, so there are some microphones that will be passed around. So if you could get those ready. Oh, we've got one already. That's fantastic.
Hi, Bill. Bill Witham from AMEG. Thanks for your speech, and yes, commend the job you've done. It's been fantastic, and notice that it has been good for the West Australian economy, and a lot of our people that work in Africa, etc., have also been working here in WA. But having said that, I think this is Africa Down Under. You understand we have got a lot of difficulties coming in and out. We've been working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that our members can still get to and back from Africa. But we hope that the West Australian government is getting the messages around it's getting harder and harder, the caps are getting cut, the quarantine rules still seem to be the same. Can you give us sort of a bit of a timeline and some of the ideas we can do to free up some of the quarantining issues and some of these caps, because they really are now cutting?
Look, the Government of Western Australia does not understand why the Commonwealth Government hasn't fixed the international border issues. We do not control the international border. The Federal Constitution makes it 100% clear that the only government is the government of the Commonwealth Government has responsibility for quarantine. We have been asking the Commonwealth Government to establish a cabin-style quarantine facility in Western Australia since about May last year. The idea of hotel quarantine was only ever supposed to be a short-term solution. We are shocked that there's still hotel quarantine for international arrivals after 18 months. It's interesting, in 1901, when the Commonwealth of Australia was established, the states gave to the Commonwealth the quarantine facilities. And if you go to Sydney, Middle Head was a quarantine facility. It now belongs to the Commonwealth Government. So, that's a piece of prime real estate. The point here is that there is absolutely no question that the Commonwealth Government is responsible for quarantine. The Premier has suggested on a number of occasions the use of Christmas Island for quarantine, and the Commonwealth Government continues to reject that, which is a surprise given they actually used it when they withdrew Australians from Wuhan. That was actually the second group of evacuees. The first group went to Darwin, the second group went to Christmas Island. So we don't understand why they haven't used Christmas Island for a quarantine facility, because that would allow a lot more Australians to return. The fact that there's over 30,000 Australians that have been trying to get back to Australia for over a year is a complete failure of the Commonwealth Government, and we don't understand why they've allowed that failure to continue. So we agree. We think the Commonwealth Government should fix this problem. They have the tools and resources to do so, and we don't understand why they haven't done so.
Thanks, Bill. That certainly makes things quite challenging. Another question up there? Oh, come on. Yeah, good.
So, Bill, what you're saying is that the state governments had nothing to do with reducing the caps coming back into Australia?
No, what I'm saying is that the caps were reduced because the hotel quarantine couldn't work. So what happened was that this hotel, other hotels, had transmission room to room. So if you think about when the hotel quarantine first started, the challenge was to quarantine the people that were arriving from the people in Australia already. When we reduced the cap, the reason for that was because we'd had transmission from people coming from overseas with the disease to people in the neighbouring room who didn't have the disease. So in order to make the hotels safe, we had to eliminate some, for example, the Mercure is no longer available. And we had to reduce the numbers in each hotel because you couldn't have people in neighbouring rooms. So the reason that we reduced the cap was because hotel quarantine was the only way for us to do quarantine. But go back and have a look at the record. It's well over a year since Mark McGowan asked the Commonwealth Government to make Christmas Island available for quarantine. The reason that we end up in the position we're in is because the Commonwealth Government has not stepped up to the mark. I saw last week that they announced that they weren't going to build the facility at Jandakot Airport, that they were going to build it at RAF Base Pearce. Well, we've asked them to do that in the past. So the Commonwealth Government needs to fix this problem, and I agree that it's a problem. But we can't fix it because the only thing we have available is hotel quarantine. If you look in Queensland, the Queensland Government has been trying to get the Commonwealth to build a facility at Wellcamp Airport outside Toowoomba. The Commonwealth wouldn't help them do it, even though it mirrors what's being done in Darwin with Howard Springs. So the Queensland Government is now, without the assistance of the Commonwealth, building that facility. As I say, you know, Derby, RAF-based Derby, RAF-based Learmonth and Christmas Island are all available today, and we've been asking the Commonwealth to look at those facilities and they've rejected them. So
a lot of our workers are double vaccinated already, you know,
Yeah.
and I know that people coming back from New South Wales right now who are singly vaccinated, coming from a hotspot, catch an Uber from the airport to a residence when they ride back into
Yeah.
Western Australia. So that's not
Commonwealth
feasible
Government,
either.
listen, you know, let's be blunt. The Commonwealth Government controls the border. We do not control the international border. It is not our responsibility. The Constitution makes it 100% clear that international quarantine is solely the responsibility of the Commonwealth. If the Commonwealth wants to solve this problem, they should do so. And I cannot believe that after 18 months, the Commonwealth Government still has not solved their problem. Hotel quarantine is not a solution. It has never been a solution. It was supposed to be a temporary fix until we got people vaccinated. That was the idea. The vaccine rollout, you know, people talk about the vaccine rollout. My son, who's 23 years of age, went and booked on the first week. He's a shift worker, so it took him 4 days to go online to book his vaccine. His vaccine will be administered in October. It's not about demand. There are plenty of West Australians who want to get vaccinated. The fundamental problem is there are not enough supply of vaccine. Now, the Government of Western Australia supported giving extra vaccine to New South Wales because they've made a mess of their control of COVID. And so we're happy that vaccines that we would have liked to have used have gone to New South Wales. But that does mean we have less vaccinated people in Western Australia. We can't take risks. If the Commonwealth Government wants to step up and do what they are legally responsible for, which is international quarantine, we've been asking them to do it for over a year.
Thanks, Bill. I think it's fair to say that's an extremely complex issue. We could talk about it for hours but it's very, very challenging. We've got time for one more question down the front here and then we'll need to move to our presenters.
John Goodlad from Euros Hartleys. I've got another Commonwealth-related question. It relates to China and obviously the outlook for the resources sector here in Western Australia with things going so well in iron ore and copper and lithium, etc. Fabulous outlook, but the big cloud is China seems to be making a special case of Australia.
Well, again, you know, the Premier has made it clear that he thinks that you should be friends with your biggest customer. What the Premier says is that, you know, his father was in small business and he worked hard as a family to stay in good touch with their customers. And that's certainly the Government of Western Australia's perspective, that China is an important trading partner for Western Australia, and much of our, you know, many jobs here in Western Australia are directly dependent on our exports to China. So we believe that you should have a good relationship with China. We acknowledge the Commonwealth's responsibility in respect to defence and foreign affairs, and we make no comment about their position on these issues. But you know, we believe strongly that you should have good relationships with China. You know, there are many countries in the world that have challenges regarding human rights, and you know, I don't know that anybody suggests we should single out one for particular attention compared to any other. So we should be consistent on that topic. You know, I'm proudly supporter of democracy, and I think that, in fact, democratic countries with a free market will have a better outcome for their citizens than centrally controlled economies without freedom. What that means is that in the long term, Australia will be a successful country, and ones that choose not to have democracy and markets will be less successful. Think about that. But you know, we should have good relationships with all the countries that are customers of our resource exports.